very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and a very warm welcome to each and every one of you who have gathered here to be a part of RedTeam Security Summit 2021. In this session is on the topic securing what you know and knowing what to secure by Ms Lekshmi Nair. Lekshmi is a seasoned cybersecurity professional with over 19 years of experience in the field of security, risk and compliance, privacy, data security, and application security. Lakshmi has avid consulting experience with global and domestic customers in energy, banking, and chemical and petroleum segments. She is known for her innovative problem-solving, result-oriented approach, and fearless leadership style. She led large security transformations involving complex security requirements in her delivery role and led teams to 100% growth in less than 1 year as a delivery leader. She also played key roles in the business growth to double the revenue figures for the security business. We are glad to share her intelligence and brilliance in cybersecurity at the RedTeam Security Summit. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome Ms Lekshmi Nair onto the stage. Welcome, Ms Lekshmi Nair. The stage is all yours.
Thank you so much, Camila, and thank you for the lovely introduction. And good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, everyone, whoever is joining from the different parts of the world. First of all, thank you so much for joining on this lovely Sunday on a holiday. And thank you, RedTeam Academy, for having me here. It is an honor to be part of this conference. I think this is my first time being here. I that there are several interesting topics that we are talking about in the overall event. Thank you for inviting me here. So the topic that I'm gonna talk about today, right? So this has been here for a long time, I believe, ever since the production systems, the automotive industry, that's been existing in that space. And of late, I think around 2018 onwards, we security professionals started talking about this very, very widely. Some of us never had the clue of what it is about. We never knew how to work towards it, and a lot of us even thought, is it really? How do we make it happen? And no, there were dire needs when we found that, okay, if we had something like this, we could have made faster responses, prioritize our actions when it comes to the responses to some of the security incidents that we had back then, like WannaCry, and also things about similar things about shell shock and things like that, right? And very recently, from last week onwards, we started hearing it all over again. Log4j. So I know that a lot of you have lost your sleep over the Log4j vulnerability in the last few days. I don't want to talk. I'm not talking about what it was and why we are talking. And what are the effects of that? You have enough knowledge by this time. So we started talking about this again, and how having this helped us in putting our acts together, responding to a dire security situation, and prioritize our actions around that. So with that, I would like to introduce my topic of today. That is called what is in the box. That is called what is in the box, and securing what you know, and knowing what to secure, right? So I would like to and what I'm going to talk to you today is nothing but about software bill of material, or what we call as SBOM. So I'm just trying to share my screen. It was working fine. I don't know why this is all right. Let me do that. I hope I'm able to share my screen. All right. Okay. So this is the topic for today, and software bill of material is what we're going to talk about the next couple of minutes. So I would like to introduce myself once again. My name is Lakshmi Nair. I work as a managing principal for Synopsys Software Integrity Group. I've been in the industry for 20 plus years. I'm very passionate about talking about new things in cybersecurity, supporting building the new cybersecurity workforce, supporting diversity in cybersecurity, and that makes me come forward and be part of this conference. And thank you again for attending this session today. All right, so let's talk about a very familiar situation. Suppose you are going to buy, you're very hungry and you wanted to buy something to eat, and when you get to the store, you are seeing those packaged sandwiches, right? So you don't know what exactly inside that, but yeah, I know that it's a veg one or it's a non-veg one. You could have a couple of sauces inside that. There could be some mayonnaise and then some vegetables inside that. Probably there's some chicken inside that. Um, and then the other side you have a sub counter where you can choose what vegetables that you want to, the bread you can choose what you want to put in inside that. You want some tomatoes or jalapenos, or then you wanted to put some southwest island salad or mayonnaise or even mustard. So all of this, right? So you have a choice to make that. And imagine you're gonna I don't have time to make that, so I'm gonna go with a sandwich that is kind of packaged, and without looking at, okay, without looking much beyond the two lines that has been written in the label, uh, that you brought it and you ate it, right? So later during the day you had an upset stomach, and this could be the situation where you had a sometimes lunch from or food from somewhere else with so many items in that, right? So you must be wondering what could be the reason for having this upset stomach. It could be maybe it could be one of the bread must be rotten, or someone would have put stale tomatoes, because tomatoes are very expensive these days. So they save some money around that. So maybe some of the oil was not good. So we could make several guesses, and I'm sure we have all gone through this process of guessing what could have caused a stomach ache, right? So have you ever thought, having a visibility on the things that has been used to cook the food would have been a better way to guess what would have caused this issue, right? So when you are going to buy a packaged thing, we often have this information on top of it, right? You have what is inside a tomato puree. You have the tomatoes, the water, the sweetness, acid. There are several things, right? So you have an opportunity to look at what are the ingredients, what could be the potential ones that could be impacting your health, or that could be having an allergic reaction on someone who is going to use that, and then take a call. Or have, after having that, you could even go back to this one and see, yeah, this could be the reason why I had a bit of peanuts in that. So I was allergic to peanut. I didn't really notice that, right? So these are some of the things that are available in front of us to make a very informed decision on certain situations, that what have caused that situation, right? So similarly, we purchase several softwares. When I say purchase, it need not be the ones that you pay and pick up. We use several ones from the repositories. You use several open source components from the repositories. You use several APIs as the developments, and which is much easier for you to kind of plug and play in the today's world of programming, right? And if you look at that, many times the amount of code that you really write is much lesser compared to the previous years, so the previous time. So around 70% of the code is already written when you are developing a software. Only 30% is something that you actually write when you are doing the programming. So the 70% of the things that you choose, it is important for you to look at what they are made of, right? But instead of that, what are our priorities? We look at functionalities, we look at scalability, we look at the elasticity, we look at the price. um, we don't really care about what are they made of. Do they have a vulnerable open source component? Does it have a SSL-v3 or a TLS encryption implementer? Does it have a MongoDB or a Firebase being used as an inbuilt database? Does it have a Log4j? Yeah, that's a latest questions that we ask these days, right? So we seldom worry about what is inside the software. And now let's shift the gear about what could be the potential impacts, right? So if you look at the last few years, around 2018 plus, there were several big cyber attacks that we have gone through, right? So if you look at the left top corner, we had Log4j, WannaCry, Heartbleed, SolarWinds, Kasewa, a lot of them, and there were things which are more very focused, but that had a larger impact, like Facebook data breach, and Epic, that was a web hosting company data breach that happened. On the other side, uh, there were breaches. Those were mostly targeted, like Stuxnet, Brickbot, that were targeted towards the OT system, OT industry. Park Mobile, Microsoft were caused because of a particular situation, and then those were very focused attack, right? So there were different kind of things, but if you look at the most popular, most number, they are in the top left hand corner. That we could still wonder some of this, what could be the impact of some of these vulnerabilities that created a real shift in the way that we look at security today. So yet we say that, yeah, this is not something um, that is not going to happen to us. The reason is we don't use, I don't think we use a vulnerable SSL component, or probably I don't even think we use Log4j. And even if we are using Log4j, I probably would have disabled the lookup, right? So and if I look at this oval, you only know only very few of, or this much of data that you think or you assume that you are not vulnerable. But the reality is that many of the organizations even know what are the components that are being used. They would know that, yeah, this is my operating system version. This could be the list of applications that we have. The databases have these versions. But if you really drill down inside of that, what exactly are the versions of the databases? What patches are, how recently they are patched? What kind of open source components are being used within that, right? So or APIs, what APIs are being used? None of this information is available in one place for organization. So we don't really know what is inside in the organization. Then you think about protecting them. So the fact is that if a vulnerability cannot be found, rather, if you can't protect something that you cannot see, right? So you don't know what is in there, then how would you even think of devising the right mitigation strategy? So some of these thoughts created the concept of SBOM in the past. So software bill of material, SBOM, is something that started long back in the manufacturing industry. So especially in the automobile space, every release, every model, they would have updated list of the components that is being used in each of those models, and who all have been using that, right? Definitely there is a purchase information that is available. So the information is at three levels. One, identifying what is being used in the products. Then which of these products are vulnerable? How do we get the information about which products are vulnerable, and what kind of information that they kind of how do we track that, and then timely identify those issues and inform your customers that, hey, you are using a potential vulnerability. Either we are patching it, or we wanted to recall this. So very recently we saw some of the Maruti Suzuki models that have been recalled, and even Apple recalled one of their MacBook Pro model because of a faulty chip that they found, right? So these are very, and how is it possible? This is possible because there is an up to date inventory of the things at a very low, at the drill down level, that is available um, with the manufacturers, right? So we're talking exactly the same thing for when it comes to engineering and product development space. The software bill of material is a formal, machine readable inventory of software components and dependencies, information about those components and their hierarchical relationship. So I wanted to focus on two terms here: formal and machine readable. Why do we call this as a formal one? Because it is not, while we have asset registers, we have PII inventory. SBOM is something that is being documented with a defined set of information that should actually be available for reference for everybody at different stages of a product life cycle. So it starts from the software development process. It contains things like image container images, running containers, executables, source code, just like your Java prom properties, and key values for that matter, APIs, all of this, right? So if I look at a container environment, there are multiple layers, right from your operating system to the container registry to what could be the SaaS components that they are using within the container environments, right? So all of this that you're using during the development process is documented as part of NISBOM. And what comes to you, the supply chain information on the right side, what comes to you from different stakeholders, like you are purchasing a device, for example, when we talk about manufacturing or healthcare industries, you have several devices that you buy, and you create wrappers around it, right? So how do we make sure that the suppliers are giving you the right set of information about what they have used to develop these softwares? Then the risk management information: what are the key risks related to the components that are being used? Are they going to be end of life? Are they going to be potential open source vulnerabilities with license impacts, right? So those, some of them could have potential issues. For example, some of them may stop working because of there is an interdependency that has happened. And the vulnerability management: what are the potential vulnerable components? What are the threat inputs that you need to consider? How do we monitor those? So that is the reason it is called formal, which kind of moves through all stages of product development. And machine readable. So again, going back to the concept of uh, traditional asset registries and PII inventory. While it is easy for you to count the number of chairs and tables in a room, you won't be able to count the screws of that is being used in a chair, right? You won't be able to uh, do it to that level. So it is important that you have a machine readable format to identifying the inventory items, and also being able to port that to different systems, so that we can leverage this inventory to monitor, track, and update on an ongoing basis. So we will talk about some of the machine readable formats, and how do we embrace those in the product life cycle in a bit, right? So this is the typical component of baseline component information in SBOM. So the primary purpose is to uniquely and unambiguously identify the components. It could be anything. It could be open source software. It need not. It may be a paid software. It may be a paid component. It could be a library that you are using. It could even be the key values, the overall structure that you are using, right? So and sometimes this while this could be the basic information, you could also choose what information that you wanted to include in addition to that, this information there, right? Some of them like licensing information, so not many organizations would be very keen on including that, because I was speaking to one of the customers there. They don't use open source at all, which is definitely a very interesting scenario, right? So they are using everything that has been licensed. So in that case, licensing information is, while open source component may not be very important, but the licensing is important to them. And then we also spoke about machine processable and interoperable space, right? So how do we create an SBOM in a format that can be integrated with multiple sources and being able to transport to other devices, other tracking systems, right? And SBOMs must also have an in scope, out of scope, metadata, and exception scenarios very clearly defined, so that if you are giving that to a customer, they should know that, okay, this if you're using this particular module of your software, yeah, this could be potentially out of scope. You don't need to worry about this one, right? And some of the metadata information that you might want to share with the customers as well. So while we spoke several things about SBOM, I wanted to kind of summarize everything into what could be the SBOM roles and benefits. So let's think why SBOM was SBOM is beneficial to the overall cycle. So if you have gone through the OWASP top 10 2021, and even the previous one, right? In the previous one, it was around, I think, the ninth one, I believe, or ninth one, I believe, yeah. There is a in the new OWASP 10, it is number 6 that talks about vulnerable components that is being used in the application. So that will give you a clear view of identifying what could be the vulnerable component, and also complying to the requirement of those vulnerable component to secure those vulnerable components, right? So let's imagine a situation where we had a WannaCry back then, and there were several organizations, including, in my experience, there were overnight issues. People had no clue about how to identify components with these vulnerabilities, right? And even today, Log4j, when that struck, while many of the good thing is that several organizations were able to track down the systems and applications using Log4j, but then they were not really been, some of them were not able to identify which application or which of the services running in a particular server are using Log4j. So for that matter of fact, one of the customers removed Log4j from some of their servers, and several applications stopped working all of a sudden, right? So let's had it been a situation where we had an up-to-date inventory SBOM available, wherein we could track it down to the application or services level, it would have been easier for us to reduce the effort to track do this in to a couple of hours and minutes, rather than doing it for several days, right? So the first and foremost thing I would say, what SBOM would help you will be able to reduce the cost of reducing cost of spending time in identifying the vulnerable components. It will reduce the potential risk. It will be able to help you channelize your vulnerability management to the right set of things that you wanted to focus at any point in time, because as security professionals, we would have only very limited resources, right? We are an industry who always work in limited staffing capacity. We always have this huge staffing skill challenge that we have. So for all of us to identify and channelize the efforts into the right space by knowing what would be the vulnerable component, work on this. That to me is the most important thing that SBOM is giving to to as us as a security community. But if I go back to the different stages of security, different product development, produce software, about understanding the component, we spoke about that, monitoring, continuously monitoring the vulnerable components, awareness about end of life and orphan components, which could be potential backdoors for attackers to get in, also allowing and denying certain services depending upon how vulnerable they are, and unplanned maintenance work like patching, and also uh, replacing some of the old components, right? So if I go back to the previous example of log4j, where the entire log4j was removed, so we could have, if we knew that, we could have worked on a planned patching situation, patching activity, and then, or we could, and if you remember the huge work that we did about moving from SSL v3 to the higher versions, or TLS. So that was a very planned activity that happened over several, I think several years even now. So we could, there is a and the time that we took was huge, and now we have an opportunity to proactively identify them, and then work on that transparency to our customers about what components are being used, what could be vulnerable, and how, what they should be tracking. And to this fact, there are certain myths that are being talked in the industry as well. So SBOM it is not about sharing your IPs with the customer, IP as an intellectual property. We are not sharing the recipe entirely, right? We are just sharing the ingredients. If you're sharing the recipe, that is about, you're sharing the entire source code, details about your IPs to the customer. It is not that you're doing. You're just telling them, hey, I'm sending you something. This has these, just like the store bought can that we shared in the beginning. It is only telling you, okay, these are the things that is being used, right? And we are going a little ahead, telling that this could be potentially vulnerable. You that, or maybe you, that information is something that we have inside in our environment, and then we are trying to just track them as on an ongoing basis. And and the second part about choose, the other part that people talk about, SBOM doesn't give you actionable insights, right? So while SBOM to a certain set of audience, we will talk just about the components, but internally, if you are going to the vulnerability and the tracking, continuous monitoring of vulnerabilities, that definitely will give you the alerts to action at the right time to avoid any specific issues that, as I mentioned earlier, right? So it's talking about where is the issue, that the potential issue, and where should I focus my work on. So especially those are the essential actionables that SBOM could give you. And the second one about compliance with policies, right? So of late, many organizations, even the overall software security model that we in synopsis that we do as part of software security maturity, called BSIM, we have seen several organizations have going towards maintaining accurate SBOM in their environment. The other thing is that there are guidance that is being given to federal departments, wherein they should start maintaining, and on some of the critical services as well, to maintain up to date SBOMs in their environment, right? And going to the right side about operate software, faster detection and vulnerable components, we spoke about that. Better risk management, because we know where the potential risks are, then how do we streamline that up, streamlining the administration of these components, and the activities related to upgrading, patching, replacing, modernizing. All of this is important then when it comes to the operating software, and drive independent mitigations, because the components, not we don't need to remove the log4j completely for a server and then just start figuring out, oh yeah, this one was using, and let me add this back, right? So we don't need to get into that situation. So we also spoke about sharing and exchanging the SBOM information. So SBOMs are essentially the machine readable information that we create as a result of automated activity. There are several open source tools available, commercial tools available as well. So typically, when you plan starting and creating an SBOM, you would start that with running a PowerShell command, and also identifying the components that are not part of your executable files, right? So, and then the next step is that we would run some of the open source tools available, like some of Sift in your Jenkins, that you are able to identify the components. Then not all tools would be able to give you the complete inventory. You could also use some of the commercial tools like Black Duck, Snake, or SonarQube to run in your environment to generate an SBOM, right? So you do all of this, and how do you combine all of this together and make it into a format that is more exchangeable, and that you can ship along with your product to the customer so that they can leverage for their work. And so because of that, NIST and ISO has come up with certain requirement for the software bill of materials to be interoperable and transferable. So this is there are three different formats: SPDC, which is essentially an open source community supporting this initiative, and they support formats like YAML, JSON, XLS, and XML. Cyclone DX is another open community supported by OWASP, and it has supporting file like XML and JSON. And SBID, or Software ID, is another one supported by the ISO Joint Committee. And all of this, most of the tools that we are talking about, they have the capability to generate a software inventory, SBOM, in any of these format, and then that can be shipped along with the products to customers and vendors. So we spoke about this whole process of creating. What are some of the practical challenges in bringing these together, right? So it is not just about creating an inventory. Sometimes just the software inventory is not enough. Let's take an example of okay. Let me think. Energy sector, or rather, let's take an example of medical industry. So. And in fact, medical industry is one of those industries who pioneered this whole thing in the last 1 year as part of the NTIA initiative. So they have several components. There are IoT devices that needs to be included as part of the inventory. That that may not be possible along with a machine a tool that can just create an SBOM, right? So how do you create an SBOM with the right mix of relevant components? And when you the second point, when you create this inventory from several tools, there will be thousands of line items in your SBOM, and not all of them would make sense to you, or not all of them would make sense to a customer to whom you are sending this information, or you are getting several inputs from your supply chain from a vendor. Not all of them would make sense to you either, right? So how do you bring all of this together, fine tune the SBOM, and identify the right ones that you want to track for vulnerabilities and license issues, right? So this is very important for you to make the best use of the SBOM. So what I'm trying to bring here is creating a tool generated one, combining all of this together is not, that's the next point, right? You need manual action to rightly identify which is the most important ones for you. What are your priority actions that you think are to be tracked either through your SIEM system, or through your vulnerability management? Which threat feeds should be subscribed for the items that you are identifying, so on and so forth, right? So This is a process, right? And that makes the question, is SBOM complete? Integrate multiple SBOMs to putting them together and see if that captures all the information that you need, and not a lot of noise and additional information, so that becomes just as much usable for you and the engineering teams to make best use of it. So putting all these together, it is important for you to devise. Each organization will have to devise a method how they will be generating, cleaning up, and maintaining SBOM, and also monitoring an SBOM on an ongoing basis, right? So, and when I say maintaining, it is also about updating your customers, getting the right information from your suppliers through third-party audits, periodic request, and also get the right feeds from your vulnerability and threat intelligence feeds to uh, inform you at the right time. So that gives me, the next makes me to move to the next one about some of the best practices. So essentially, I would say it's not very old thing that we are saying that, oh yeah, we have several people have done and we have so many things that are tried and tested. This is relatively new. Everyone is still learning, but there are things that you could do to kind of reduce the overall effort in this, right? So make it more engineering driven. So one another change that we see in today is the shifting left and shifting everywhere. So rather than security only driving the engineering efforts, we are seeing that engineering teams are more getting involved in the security activities. We are more moving towards security champion culture. So making it more look like an engineering driven, because essentially they are going to get the benefit equally as a security team by maintaining the components that they have in their application. So improve the awareness, improve uh, and move the responsibility more towards the engineering side, so that we have the right set of things that we can bring into the culture. So the other point is, how do you continuously integrate this with your build process? As I said, it's not something that you can just go to a store and make a list of things and just and say, ah, yeah, this is my SBOM, right? So you need to and you can't ask your compliance team or engineering team to make a manual list. That will never be complete. And running a tool every time is also a cumbersome thing. So how do we integrate the inventory creation with your pipeline? So and let this as a byproduct of your pipeline. When I say pipeline, it is not just your CI, because you would have several components that you will be using as part of your development process. That essentially should be part of the inventory, but also in the deployment, what components are you using, because your container images may be different from what you doing in the development, and the deployment container setup would be different, right? So what are the key components in your deployment side as well? So at every stage, running this activity and getting the inventory as a byproduct is the way to go. Otherwise, you will have loopholes, you will have slips and misses that will never make this activity complete. And after you have, how do you continuously monitoring? One way is you have these monitoring container monitoring tools, or other, for that matter, any vulnerability monitoring tool like burp, or integrated with your pipelines. And the other one is that, how do you map that with your supply chain and your threat intelligence feeds that I mentioned about? How do you monitor this and proactively inform the development teams that, okay, these could be the potential vulnerable components, and work towards it? So uh, and as security professionals, right, we don't be working on fixing the vulnerabilities all the time, because if you continue to do that, we will never be able to have a good night's sleep, right? So how do you stop threats, or identify threats much earlier in the cycle, is what you would be doing with these practices. So there's one step forward in doing that. So some of these best practices, I won't say this is all, because all of us are in the learning process, because it's a comparatively new thing coming in the industry. Only very few I think there is certain percentage of organizations have done that. I don't think many of them have perfected this act as well. Now, that's I'm coming towards end of my session. So linking it back to the title, know before you open what is inside the box, rather than getting in there, identify and knowing without knowing what is inside, or giving something without telling what is inside. Right? I'm talking about we as a customer getting things from our suppliers in the supply chain, and also giving this to our customers without letting them know what is inside the box. It is not always a pleasant surprise, right? And better to tell them what is inside. You have a rat inside, better be careful of rat bites, right? There are fragile things inside, better be careful about um, meeting them, or rather protecting them, right? So that is what we are the shift that we are coming to. We are being more transparent, open, and also being aware of the threats and vulnerabilities that we are prone to at each level, each minute level, and that enables us to make wise investments in the effort that we spend in the security and compliance. So that I'm coming to the end of my session. Thank you again for listening to me and taking out your time on this Sunday afternoon. And thank you, RedTeam Security Academy, for having me as part of this prestigious conference. So, with that, I'm done with my session. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them as well.
Thank you so much, Ms Lekshmi Nair. That was a wonderful session, starting with an analogy and then using layman's terms so that all the people from all the spheres can understand your topic in much better terms. Thank you so much. That was a really thoughtful and wonderful session. Now, if the audience, if you have any doubts, you can pose that in the question answer session. You can see the question and answer session on the right hand side of the screen. So if you have any questions, you can post it there. Yes, we have one question asked by Ramakrishna.
Okay, I can see that the question is on till today, nobody are expected that Log4j will cause biggest vulnerability, but how to identify which third-party dependencies used in the application will be more vulnerable. So, to answer this question, right, and I would go back to the same statement: without knowing what is in, you won't be able to protect these things. And also we need to identify, and there are when we have something like a S bomb, you would be able to monitor some of these issues on an ongoing basis and see what are the potential vulnerability. But having said that, there is nothing like a zero day or a zero or 100% security, right? So there are situations where these day vulnerabilities like this are invented, and then the impact, or rather how we how quickly we are coming back to the normal is what is being measured, or as the maturity of the organization. So we, as I said, in the Log4j, there are several organizations. They were quickly been able to identify where their Log4j components are, and then apply patches to prevent them. Right. So, or prevent the vulnerability from causing any harm to them. Right. There's one more question. Can you suggest SBOM applications in SaaS model example in any website or reference? So as I said, there are I could give you some of these example. Like Sift is an open source tool. This can very well run in your Jenkins pipeline. There are commercially available tools like Black Duck. Then even SonarQube can do that at certain level, and Snyk is another one. So I mean, I have no particular preference about any of these tools, right? So I'm just talking about in general what would be some of the tools that you can leverage, and all of these tools are can be used in cloud. But SaaS model, I doubt we have SaaS model is something that has been available. I don't think so. I'm not very confident that we have any SaaS model that we can just go and create. So usually you have these tools that you kind of set up in your pipeline and then just run and get it. Not the other way. Right. Okay, so there is another question. After creating an SBOM, how much extent we have to transparent with organization customer? All right. So this is a very interesting question, right? So this is one of the myth about SBOM, right? Many organizations would talk about, right, are we sharing too much information, are we sharing some of our intellectual property information with these people, with our customers, so how is it going to impact us? So there are two ways that you can divide. So when you are sharing this information to the customer, you could as part of an SBOM, and there are regulatory compliance requirements as well. Some of the customers would want you to share a certain drill down information, right? So depending on that, you could share the component level, the versions that is being used. That is the level of information that usually we can share with our customers. When it the vulnerability monitoring, tracking, etc., maybe we could you do that internally. But I would say dependencies, the unique identifier, component names, the versions, those are the things that we should essentially be able to share with the customers. All right. So that's pretty much. I could see there is one more question which is um, uh, not really relevant to this session, right? So I could probably talk about that in a bit, but I think I would take that question at a later stage. I can come back to you. So with 5 minutes left, I will hand it back to Camila. I think we have done with most
Yes,
of our
yes.
question.
Um, which platform? Yes, one more question is there.
Yeah. Which are the platforms useful for to learn these things? So I won't say there is a one single platform that you would be able to find. I could share some links here. Right, let me just share one of the links that you would be probably find useful. Just give me a second. I can share that here. Here you go. So this one, I personally did a lot of reference from this one. They have done some interesting initiative about creating the SBOM, and you could also refer to the ISO standard 65666. That is also a good reference, and the other reference that you would be able to use would be any of the websites about Black Duck, Sneak, and tools like that. That will give you good information about how an SBOM is generated and how they are interoperable format that's being used. Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. So I'll share my screen once again. And okay, let me do that. I have my um, Twitter, and okay, here is my uh, contact information. You can reach out to me in either through Twitter or LinkedIn. I'm very active in LinkedIn, so you'll be able to reach out to me quickly through LinkedIn and Twitter. So I'm happy to answer any questions or support any of your needs. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Camila, and Red Team Security Academy for having me here. This has been a wonderful experience, and thank you again. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Oh, yes, ma'am. We are grateful that you are a part of Wix's event at RedTeam Security Summit. That was a productive question answer session. Thank you so much once again that you made time for us for this RedTeam Security Summit, and we would love to collaborate with you in the future as well. So thank you so much once again. Thank you so much, ma'am.